that fast. It's not a conversation. Okay, you crossed the line. I now believe that I'm in fear of injury, and therefore I'm going to repel you as quickly as possible.
Yes,
You see, but
cowboy.
society frowns on that kind of behavior, and soldiers, especially old soldiers,
Shit.
have to
All
constantly remind
soldiers.
themselves that they can't react this way.
All
Okay,
soldiers.
when a bad guy jumps out of a bush who has the intention to kill you, even if he doesn't personally have the intent to kill you,
You gonna kill him
you
first.
believe that everybody who's wearing that uniform's intent is to kill you, and he jumps out of the bush, you're not going to ask him if he's surrendering before you shoot him,
You gonna
right?
shoot his ass.
Oh, hey, sorry, man. I saw something. There was actually an excerpt, and it was from. It might have been How the West Was Won, but it was one of those movies, right? It was a Civil War deal, and these two guys are fighting in this battle, and one of them is a rebel, and one of them is a Yankee, and both of them are fighting this heated battle, and both of them leave, right? They run from the battle because the battle where they're at, the battle's being lost, and they come running. And the Confederate comes running this way, and the Yankee comes running that way, and they both dive into this ditch, right? And suddenly realize the other guy is there. I mean, this is almost happening simultaneously. And they look at each other, right? And they immediately raise their weapons, okay? Because the first thing they saw was the uniform, the other uniform. But before either one of them could get the weapon all the way up and pull the trigger, they realized they're actually brothers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
the
know the
one
story.
joined the one joined the federal movement. The other one went off to the south and joined the Confederacy. And here they are now in the middle of this battle, and they're facing each other, gun pointed at each other in this ditch. And they're realizing that these are brothers. They grew up together on the same farm, right? They have the same mom, same dad, same sisters. Okay, and they have no interest in killing each other. Now that's a unique scenario.
Wow.
Because it's kind of that thing. So you come across the enemy in the jungle, or you come across the enemy in the alley in an urban environment, you know and he's hiding, right? He is hiding. He's trying to get away from his own army. He's hiding. He doesn't want to die. He doesn't want to kill. But you're coming down the alley, and this guy pops up from behind something down the back of the alley. Do you stop and go, hey, do you want to surrender?
No. You shoot his ass.
No. You see him pop up and go, enemy, bang, 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 bang.
What are you talking about? You don't see
And the only way he gets surrender is if he's lucky enough that you missed.
He surrenders if he can scream out loud and say, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's still breathing because you didn't hit him, but you didn't hit a vital organ. So he's laying on the ground going, no, me surrender. Don't shoot no more. I surrender. Okay. Yeah. The old adage of the white flag. I heard stories about guys marching through the jungle, right? And they'd come out of the bushes with a white flag. And they go, no, we surrender. And as soon as they got the troop all got gathered up to that point, then a bunch of other people out in the jungle would pop up and cut them all down. False flag. Wonder where that comment came from? They're doing a false flag game? Yeah. False flag. I'm not really surrendering. I was using that as a trick.
Use as a ploy to lure you in.
Yeah. So we live in a weird world, but there are people in this world right now that are asking the majority to accept the philosophy of the minority, and the majority ain't really buying it.
But they're complacent.
They're trying. They're trying,
complacent,
going, I really don't care what you do.
They're complacent, though. The majority is becoming complacent. They're like, who cares? We'll just come out and make it. Okay. And then you got the legislatures that are saying, well, those are my people. I'm going to give them their rights and more and more. Just like the President of the United States wants to give Social Security money to the people in Ukraine.
Well, now, I heard something many years ago, and I know it was a fallacy, but yet it didn't prove out to be so false, okay? and that was, all these nations around Europe, especially, and parts of North Africa and in the Asian republics that thought that we should give them reparations and help them rebuild. We rebuilt Japan, our tax dollars.
Oh, hold on, hold on.
Not ours and the Russians or ours and the Germans or ours and the no, ours, the United States of America, our tax dollars paid to put Japan back on the economic platform, to get it out, to clean it up after the war, to get it all together, to train them, educate them, get them to schools. Then we even sent them jobs. So you weren't born yet, but your mom remembers when there was suddenly this boom of, buy all these toys made in Japan.
Yes. Tyco.
It was cool if it was made in Tokyo.
Tyco toys. Tyco.
Yeah.
Tokyo. Yeah.
Yeah, but see, prior to that, we didn't have that.
No, we didn't.
Okay. And prior to that, when I was a little kid, we had Matchbox. Okay. There was no Hot Wheels. Now, Duesenberg, excuse me, Duesenberg put out a toy line of automobiles and such that were really fine craftsmanship. They were great stuff, great toys. They're great collectors if you can find them. They're great collector's items because for, up until about 1945, 1950, there really weren't very many toy manufacturers left. Okay. There were the mechanical puppet toys and stuff from before the turn of the century, but after World War I, there just was not a lot of toy manufacturing going on. So a little bit did go on. The few companies that still maintained it, okay, it was well worth having, like Stipe, okay, getting a Stipe bear, that kind of thing, it was well worth it. And, but see, we couldn't have any of those because those were made by Germans. So therefore, they were not sold in American stores. So you could go to Macy's or you could go to Gimbel's or what would become Kmart, any of those guys. You couldn't buy those German-made toys because even though they were better toys, okay, we didn't like Germany. So we didn't buy German toys. We didn't buy things from Germany. We didn't buy things from Japan until the market got flooded with it and you didn't have another option. And see, actually, people think that Hot Wheels, okay, Hot Wheels came out of, I want to say, I can't think of the name of it. Not Mannheim, but like another industrial community like Mannheim, Germany. There was another, okay, and those Hot Wheels actually came out of there first. The same as Matchbox came out of England. Okay, that was originally a British distribution toy. And if you look at the bottom of it, it still says LTD. And most anything that still has an LTD behind it means it was started in Britain, was not a U.S. corporation, because they say Corp, not LTD. Okay, but then there came a point where, like Matchbox and all that, we started seeing all this German stuff infiltrated. But see, it wasn't called German. They didn't refer to it as German. They simply sent it here. The biggest export Germany had after World War II was the Volkswagen.
Right.
Now, that was the biggest publicly, not the biggest. There was much more, okay? Much of our diesel capacity, diesel trucks, diesel locomotives, diesel trains, most of that technology came out of Germany. Was refined in Germany, and we bought up that technology. Most of our big heavy industrial equipment, like the big front end loaders and the big road graders and that kind of stuff, most of that came out of Germany or that region, Bulgaria, that kind of thing. Yeah, and people don't realize it because it was distributed through an American company. Because at the time they were afraid that if they just outright said this is German, then nobody would buy it. Sears would buy for many years. The Sears Corporation would buy shiploads of merchandise from Germany and bring it to the United States, repackage it, and put it under the Sears brand.
Name. Yes.
so that people would buy it. They loved it. They liked the product. They just didn't want to know that it came from Germany because they were still blaming the Germans for killing their sons in World War II. Now, see, this is why our society is the way our society is. It's not new. Okay. And this whole thing with Ukraine, I see that. I wonder or question if the whole premise isn't to get reparations.
It is.
Okay. That the whole reason that Putin is attacking Ukraine is because at the end of the day, that Bolshevis area or whatever they call that, uh, it was dilapidated anyhow. It was left over from World War II
Mm.
rebuilds, right? And so consequently, it all needed to be torn down and it all needed to be remade new. And this is a way to do it. And in the premise of this doing this, then they're going to turn around and they're going to get the great rich Americans to send over billions of dollars to rebuild.
Mm.
But if there wasn't a war, we wouldn't rebuild. We wouldn't just give them the money if there wasn't a war first. See, there has to be this humanitarian crisis. And I would contend that all of this dates back to one line in history: the redistribution of wealth.
Mm.
Say it.
See, it's
brother.
not just the redistribution of wealth within the United States. It's the redistribution of wealth because America is so wealthy and the rest of the world is so poor. It's not fair. We should support them. We should just give them money, like we did with Bulgaria, like we did with Germany, like we did with France, like we did with England. Okay, the only people we didn't give money to after World War II were the Russians.
So
We even gave billions of dollars to the Chinese
wow.
to help them rebuild after we ran the Japanese out of China. Because people forget that part of that war was the fact that Japan invaded China, and get this, they won. Okay? A couple of million Japanese defeated 2 billion Chinese. That's how organized China was. China lost everything to a handful of Japanese soldiers because the people wouldn't rise up to defend them. And to this day in China, the people will not rise up to defend the government. They won't attack the government because they don't want the repercussions that might come with it. But if somebody else was attacking the government, the Communist Party, the people in China would just sit back and eat rice and forget about it. They wouldn't raise arms. They wouldn't come to their defense any more than the Iraqis were ready to defend Saddam Hussein. Okay, we walked in, we landed, man, dropped our troops on the beaches, started moving forward, and they immediately started popping up out of the holes, throwing their guns on the ground, going, "We surrender, man. We're not going to fight with you. We have no desire to fight with you." That's that guy up there, man. We had to come down or he would have punished our families. Right? So we had to show up. We had to put on a uniform or he would have punished our families. But we don't want to fight for him. So,
We don't
I
fight.
mean, and, I think Ukraine is a smokescreen. I think that, I think they're doing what they're doing with intent. I think that, I do think there's a bickering going on between the two parties. I don't doubt that for a minute. But I don't think it's the war that we're being told it is. So you'll have to excuse me. We can either end this conversation or I'll be right back. But I've been sitting here for too long.
It's okay, Bob. We can end it now because I get ready for my man. All right, go ahead, Bob. I'll be right here for you. All right.
He's a great use. I think I really enjoy him.
Good.
Louise should be over here listening to what
She has dementia.
Oh, so it won't hold.
All right, I
I
got
like
it.
what I hear.
Odin is back, and I'm ready to have some more fun with Cowboy Bob. I just finished booking a show for putting it out there on the 5th of May. I hope everybody is going to be available that day because it's going to be big. This is a congressional lady in Florida I'm bringing in, so prepare yourself with me, Samantha Goldberg, May 5th, only on the Global Enlightenment Radio Network and all of its syndicated shows, which means syndicated outlets. Thank you so very much, and here we go with Cowboy Bob once more.
That was a station identification. I missed the station identification. I'll do it again.
Shut up, Bob.
Do it again, Daddy. Do it again.
I'll do it again. I'll do it again. You little son of a bitch. I don't want to tell you shit.
that was one of the coolest commercials of its era.
Do it again, Daddy.
Because I don't even remember what they were advertising, but it was just that they walked out on the beach and the little kid and the father and the father's pointing and they watched the sun come up, right? And he's going, "Do it again, Daddy, do it again."
Well,
it's like you really have that wonderment. There's a point, when they're like 4 or 5 years old, there's that wonderment where you can actually, make the kid believe that you're doing this wonderful thing that's just happening, but the kid doesn't know that. So you could take a bow and they're all just amazed as hell about it, that you could do that. Right up to that point where he says, "Do it again, Daddy," and then you go, "I will. Give me a day."
Well, I just booked Miss Laverne Spicer to be live. She is a lady that's running a Republican candidate in Florida's 24th district. She's fighting the supposed lies of the left and in the Democrats' destruction of Black America.
So what was the point then of that posting?
Just announcing.
Was she demonstrating poor humor, or was those actually her jokes?
Those are not hers. Read the thing carefully.
I read what was printed there. It just said, it just showed all these bad jokes.
Yeah, it's terrible, isn't it? Well, they're going to be discussed on May 5th.
Okay, so she wasn't propagating that. She was somebody.
I'm not going to respond. I'm just going to let her go at it on May 5th. I'm not going to talk about it. This is all her. She can have the fun of revealing. I
think at this point, in all honesty, it's not that the Republicans aren't racist, okay? But it's more that they're isolationists. They would prefer that you live on your side of town and I'll live on my side of town, and I'm not responsible for you and you're not responsible for me, and we should just get along together in the middle of the road. But I believe at this point they are becoming even more integrated in the idea that they have to wake up. See, one of the realities that we live with is when I was a kid, you were a minority. And that was used, the terminology was used in such a manner as to suggest that it was 5-1, 6-1, 10-1. You were a minority. You were a very small number of people, okay, that didn't live in my neighborhood, so I didn't have to worry about you. But that was 50 years ago, 60 years ago. Now, okay, populations have changed. The minorities aren't so minority anymore. As a matter of fact, there may actually be almost an equality in numbers. And I would almost go so far as to suggest that there are less white people now by percentages. In other words, where once we were the dominant, we are now not the dominant anymore. Or at least if you combine a number of others together, they definitely outnumber us. And so if they are unified, then they are the majority, we are the minority. That's a strange game to play with when you're sitting in my chair. Because you went through a whole lifetime of thinking one way and going, that's not fair. I don't like it. I'm not going to treat people that way, blah, 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 blah. And then suddenly the whole game's changed now. And the other side, who you stood up for and defended 30 years ago, are now turning on you and calling you a racist, calling you names, attacking you, quite blatantly attacking, coming up to you on the street for no particular reason and just start wailing on you simply because you're white. And therefore, even though you were nowhere near where that cop knelt on that guy's neck, you're just as guilty as he is because you look like him. And
not
that
necessarily
is the
look like
most
him
racist.
either.
That is the most racist approach there is.
But hold on, you may not even look like him. It's just your
He
skin
was
color.
white. I am white. That's the comparison.
That's the only thing they go on.
Yeah.
But hold on.
Because
You
I
ready?
am white, I'm as guilty as he is.
But hold on. On the other side, you have Antifa and BLM. Have anybody noticed how many white people are in Antifa? It's almost like the gay liberation
Well, yeah,
parade.
okay, come on, man. Let's break this down. Let's just be asinine morons for about 5 minutes here, okay?
Okay, you ready? Hold
and
on.
cut through the cheese and get rid of the goddamn ice. And let's get down to this nut cake that we're living on. Back in the latter 60s, going into the 70s, the metropolitan or it didn't matter who I had sex with attitude was growing and expanding. And they wanted attention and they couldn't get attention. And you could go into a business and if they found out you were homosexual, you could be fired from your job. No particular reason had to be given, just because you were homosexual or because you lived with another person of the same gender. Didn't even have to declare. You just found out that two guys were living together in the same house.
Oh, okay? No, not Three's Company style.
Okay, so that was bad business, right? So they wanted to change this, but they couldn't. So what they did, I'm sorry. I don't know what my problem is. Rasty pot.
Yeah.
So
it's too dry.
These educated now, and mind you, you got to remember where they're coming from too. Okay, so some of these are coming out of Eastern colleges. Most of them are coming out of coastal colleges. So they're coming out of Berkeley. They're coming out of UCLA. They're coming out of Stanford. All right, and they're into this new. They came up with this new. Rich kids can go to school and not really learn anything, okay? And they called it social sciences. So they could get involved in these liberal arts programs where they were studying the disparity between these populations of people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they took their college educations, and some of them, for their master's thesis, actually went down into the Hispanic and Black communities in central and southern Los Angeles, LA, okay, California, and literally went in and started working with these people, much in the way that Acorn would do decades later. Come in and work with these people and start planting this seed that you're being mistreated by the man. Now, these are purebred white kids down in the barrios in southern LA, over in Watts, in Southland, in Corpus Land, okay, in these projects where all these black people are living. And they're in there telling them that, they're part of the new Rainbow Coalition thing, and we're here to convince you that you need to stand up for your rights. By the way, we have law degrees, so we'll actually represent you. If just 5 of you will get together, we'll file a lawsuit in your name.
Class action.
And you'll get rich. You'll get a lot of money for doing nothing, okay? So they agitated this shit. Then, now, this whole time, mind you, the Hispanics and the blacks are killing each other on a regular basis over turf. Okay, so this has been gang wars have been going on for a decade in central LA over whose turf. Okay, this is the Latino neighborhood. This is the black neighborhood. These are the Puerto Ricans. They're not Latinos, they're Puerto Ricans. Okay, these are Haitians. They're not Africans. Okay, so they all had their own little neighborhood, and they're all trying to run their own business scams in their own little neighborhood, and they're battling with each other with gunfire in the streets over who gets to claim Ninth Street. Okay. So they go down in the midst of all of this and they say, hey, look, man, you guys are fighting with each other. You're not the enemy. They set you up. You need to be pissed at them. And they started the original civil rights movement. And they got a whole lot of black people who otherwise would not have been interested to get involved, had spent generations not getting involved, right? Staying in the shadows. Now they're out and they're screaming. And of course, look at their mouthpieces. Okay. Now, your mom could probably run them down better than I can because I heard their names, but I didn't pay attention. But the Malcolm X crowd, right? The various people. Jesse Jackson and what's the guy with his spiked hair?
Oh,
the little mouthy dude. Sharpton?
Yeah, he used to be
Okay.
fat.
So
Now
these
he's
guys,
thin
now
and
these
he's got
guys
a
got
girlfriend.
these guys were simply law students, okay, that were not at the tops of their classes, by the way.
Hell no.
Okay, and they were only in university because of the equal rights thing, which demanded that if you took federal money, you couldn't discriminate against them for being black.
Basically, you couldn't
So
kick them out.
they didn't go to Vietnam now, mind you. They didn't get drafted and go off and fight the war. Oh, no. They went to college and got deferments. So they avoided ever having to go to war. And then they came out with their college degrees and they started these organizations and they started raising all this nut and noise while they were raising all this money. And trust me, Jesse Jackson is worth millions. Al Sharpton is worth millions.
Yes, and neither one of them have a church.
These guys never work
and
for a living.
Hold on, and neither one of them have a church.
No. Al Sharpton gets $100,000 for doing an appearance.
And don't forget, Al Sharpton was under federal tax, in federal tax court, owed millions of dollars.
These guys agitated a group of the population, and we can have long conversations about why they were poor, why they were impoverished, why they were still living where they were living. Okay. Some of that is my grandfather's fault, and some of that is your grandfather's fault. Okay? Because he didn't teach his kids that they could do anything more than go along with what the white man said or otherwise. Don't make waves. Okay? Well, that was slave mentality. And they passed that down into generations. See, they set children up to be defeated before they ever had a chance to get started. They said, you're black, therefore you've got no chance, don't bother. Right? So, here we are. This is happening. These people have agitated this. Now, in the meantime, here come those people from what now are called the LGBT community, that Rainbow Coalition, who now are coming down and going, come on, get excited, go out and riot, protest. And of course, they're protesting right in there with them, so that it seems like all these people marching for Martin Luther King are also marching for gay rights.
Hold on. You have to remember, it's the Rainbow Coalition. And what does the LGBTQ have? The
Rainbow Coalition. Yeah. See, that's it. It started out. Okay. Now, this was about the same time historically that we started seeing discotheques.
Yep.
This is the same time that they started publicly talking about the baths. Okay. Now, I don't know what's in D.C. because I never spent any time there. But I do know there are several areas in the Bronx and Newark and over towards Jersey where there are big, Olympic size auditorium type facilities that are dedicated to nothing but Greco-Roman baths. And everybody in there is gay as a $3 bill.
Huh.
Okay. All right. That's where they go to hang out. And it's not private. It's just not public. And anybody that knows that if you're not one of them, you don't go there. Because if you go there, they're gonna hit on you. Okay, because they're gonna assume you're there because you're gay. And they're in Boston, they're in New York, they're in Chicago, they're in Denver, they're in San Francisco, I'm sure there's one in Phoenix, or used to be at one time. Okay, it's not public. But see, those even came out for a while. They were being more public. People were aware that they existed. Okay, all of this was happening. Now, okay, we get a new edge up our butt. Now the new edge up our butt is I've got AIDS. Well, two things. First thing, and I will stand on this. First thing is, that is my partner. I don't care what you think of my relationship. That is the person I identify with being my soulmate. And my soulmate is sick and in the hospital and dying, and I want to be by their side. And I'm being denied access because of my religious philosophy. Because that's really what it comes down to. That's my gay partner, and I want to be with my gay partner, and my gay partner wants me to be with them, but the system is saying no because I'm not related and we're not married, because the law doesn't recognize same-sex marriage. So we started with the healthcare gig, and we went through that. And in the process, something most people are not aware of, by the way, there are caveats built into the Affordable Care Act, which also grants entitlements to same-sex partners. So even before we could get married, there was if I write a letter saying that Daryl is my partner, and that in the case of emergency, Daryl has the right to come and orchestrate or oversee my care and treatment on my behalf because he's my life partner. So all I have to do is have a written piece of paper, and that allows him now to have authority over my health insurance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that wasn't good enough, so they came back out, same group, went back into the same neighborhoods, agitated a new generation of young college kids coming up out of the barrios and coming up out of their projects, etc. And they said, they're oppressing you. They're keeping you down. They're holding your back. They're not giving you equal opportunity and equal rights. So they managed to get another passed equal rights bill. Only this time they put a caveat in it that gave them the power to be able to get married legally.
And that was under the Obama administration.
They could legally enter into a contract in the eyes of the government.
And that was under the Obama administration.
Right.
And hold on, okay. Who has been proclaimed and videoed?
Well, the Affordable Care Act gave them authority. It gave us authority over.
He prepped the whole situation up for it.
Yes, he set it up. Both for them to get the health care side and to guarantee that gays could also have because it really comes down to right of property. So if Daryl and I are partners and one of us dies, even though the property that we own, cars, bank accounts, land, houses, whatever, okay, if they're in my name, he can't touch them.
Until we are.
Even though he is my partner, and even though I would have intended for him to have it, I can even leave it in my will.
Can't get it.
But see, they can do a nolo contende to the will because they can say, this is a stranger to the family asset. Therefore, he's not a wife or a husband. He's not any blood relative. Therefore, he does not have a right to claim over the heir of a estate that any blood relative would have. So my third cousin on my mother's side could claim it and declare Daryl nolo contende. So the law was changed so that we could go to in front of a magistrate and we could get a legal license of marriage, which now takes away that nolo contendere argument. See, now he is my first and rightful heir. Okay, because technically we're married, so spouses, right? Under that law, the spouse, then he has absolute control. My parents can't say a word one. My spouse can. My sister, my brother, they can't. They can file papers in court,
They can
but
file
they
all
have no
day.
authority. My spouse does. Ultimate authority. That's that contract we agreed to. See, we signed this contract. You say you will stand for me, and I say I will stand for you. And we agree on how we will stand, and we trust that each other will uphold our wishes. And we enter into that compact. In the church, that's called a marriage. In court, okay, it's a contract. It's a contractual obligation. Thus, if two people are married and they decide that they don't want to be married anymore, then there is the argument of the rights. Now, I can work for 40 or 60 hours a week, make lots of money, buy lots of pretty stuff, support my spouse who sits at home and does nothing but paint their toenails and watch TV all day. And they can say that half of everything that I